The first interview we ever recorded for Booked All Night was way back in 2017. Since then, we've interviewed close to 50 authors combined between the podcast and our website. Unfortunately, during the Anchor FM Spotify merge, we had shut down the project and many episodes and interviews were lost. Through some extensive searching, I have managed to find roughly half of our interviews, and I'm in the process of uploading them again. We were still learning during these interviews, but I hope you enjoy the bad audio and awkward fangirling. Be warned though, the older episodes contain cursing, eating on mic, and loud pets. When you're done listening, please leave a 5-star review of the show, and then head over to the newer stuff, it's way better.
About young adult literature, hosted tonight by myself, Magdalyn, because Jessica Tuckerman has lost her voice.
I mean, it's kind of here.
No, it's not, Jessica. Our fair warnings include our language, spoilers, and rude-ass pets. Download the Podbean app today and become a patron of Booked All Night for as low as $1 to get access to extra content, including extended interviews and uncut episodes. And make sure to visit bookedallnight.blog for more book reviews, TBRs, and quotes from your favorite books. On tonight's episode, we are joined by Helen Scheurer, all the way from
Scheurer. I remember this one.
all the way from Australia. She's the YA author of Heart of Mist and its upcoming sequel, Reign of Mist, which is due to publish this September. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm very grateful that you decided to join us once again after our recording software decided to shit the bed, as one would say. So Heart of Mist and Reign of Mist are part of a series. Could you give us a little synopsis for Heart of Mist and a teaser for Reign of Mist?
Yeah, sure. So Heart of Mist, book 1 in the trilogy called The Oromir Chronicles, is basically set in a land where magic is forbidden, and our 19-year-old protagonist, Bleak, is seeking a cure for her magic. And basically, along the way, she meets a whole lot of challenges and kind of scary, interesting characters, and it's basically a big quest. And, Reign of Mist follows on pretty much straight from that, and Bleak and her companions are kind of scattered across the realm, and they just don't know who they can trust, and all they know is a war is coming. And that's pretty much all I can say about that without spoiling everything. And I'm really cautious of, I think because I'm working on the 3rd book at the moment, I think in my head that book 2 is out in the world already, and it's not. And so I'm really scared I'm going to say something that's going to spoil something. So yeah, that's all I'll say for now.
Well, it does sound super exciting, and I can't wait to crack open Reign of Mist. I'm still in the middle of Heart of Mist right now, so I'm very excited to see where the second book goes.
Cool.
So what was the first scene that you explored when you first started writing Heart of Mist?
It's actually an unusual one. So the first scene that I wrote or explored was actually the prologue. So the start where the girl walks into the mist. That was always the first image I had when I was thinking about writing Heart of Mist. And yeah, it's quite unusual that the first thing you ever write for a book ends up actually either in the book at all or actually the first thing in the book. So yeah, it's a unique kind of situation. I don't think that happens very often.
That's definitely true, because you go through so many different revisions and iterations of whatever you're writing at the time that you're never sure what's gonna come out the other end. But that's really great that it was the first thing, and it's still there. So sort of jumping off of that, are you a plotter or a pantser, and how do you know when you're ready to actually start writing the story?
I'm definitely more of a plotter. I find it much easier to write when I know where the story is going. I think if I've got no idea and I'm just kind of writing aimlessly, I find it really hard to get motivated and really hard to push forward. But that being said, I do wish that I had have plotted more for the overall series. So I've plotted like each book, and when I started the series, I knew like vaguely where each book was going, but I'd never written a series before, and so I don't think I really understood how many kind of like different threads and things you've got to weave throughout each book and things like that. But yeah, so I mean, I suppose lesson learned. It's all part of the learning curve.
Definitely, it's absolutely true. Like, it's just, you feel like you're in a web of like strings that are connecting to like 3 different boards with all these different notes scattered when you're trying to kind of pull together a plot after the fact. When you try to write a series, I've definitely been in that seat before.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I think as I've written Reign of Mist and then the 3rd book now, I've definitely kind of realized that the later books are basically just an exercise in problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm starting to write it and I'm just like, oh my God, I've backed myself into this corner. How do I get out of this corner? And it's just like that constantly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole process for the later books, unfortunately.
And that's just what makes writing so rewarding at the end, when you are able to finally break that puzzle. That's great.
Really?
So what was the weirdest thing that you had to research while writing books 1 and 2 of the Ormir Chronicles?
I actually wrote I think it was a guest blog post on a different blog a while back about this. So it's quite fresh in my mind, but I had to research so many weird things. I think one of the weirdest ones was like I typed into Google, how hard is it to pull an arrow from someone's stomach?
That's right.
Yeah, so that was quite morbid. Another one, I think I went through a phase of researching the best poisons to paralyze a person. Yeah, so my Google search history is definitely looking a tad sketchy.
We had an interview recently with another author who had been gifted a book about poisons and how they affect a person, because she was also writing a book about assassins, and in the book one of the characters poisons another, so she was gifted that book from a friend of hers. So I'll have to find that, and I'll see if I can find the book for you in case that might be helpful in the future.
You never know. You never know. What a great friend. What a great friend of that author.
Right? If only all of our friends could be so relied upon to give us great murder material. So do you have any writing rituals that you go through before you sit down to write?
Yeah, so I've discovered over the years that I'm very much more a morning person. So I tend to try and get up quite early, and the first thing I do is make a cup of tea. I feel like the morning's not really started right if I don't have a cup of tea as I'm sitting down at my desk. So that's definitely the main one. The other thing I do is if I'm writing a chapter or a new scene or whatever, I try and do like dot points of that particular scene or chapter, just as like I said before, if I know where I'm going with a particular scene or chapter, it makes it much easier to sit my ass down and actually write out what I need to write out, if that makes sense.
That does, absolutely, it does. Do you sit down and write every day, or do you try and just write when you can?
No, I write every day. So I'm a full-time author now. As of the beginning of this year, I'm a full-time author. Yeah, I really need the regular routine of, okay, I start work at 7 a.m. I'm going to sit down and write for a few hours. Yeah, and especially I think even more so with writing fantasy, I find I have to write every day. I have to be immersed in that world every day. And that really helps me, keep the momentum going with whatever I'm working on.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So yeah, every day, and definitely almost the same time every day as well. It's that I'm a bit of a control freak like that.
So you are a morning person. Have you ever, like, in your past, did you try out different times that you sat down and write? Did you try writing at night? Did you always know that you were a morning writer?
I'm not sure really. I mean, I think, if the mood strikes me, whatever time it is, I'll try and write, because I mean, you got to take those moments when you can. But I think I've always liked the idea of, maybe being up before the rest of the world and, just kind of being my little bubble in the morning. Though that is getting harder now because it's winter here in Sydney at the moment. I mean, it's nothing compared to what other countries get, but it makes it that little bit harder to get out of bed in the morning.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I'm definitely in the winter months. In the summer months, you're almost dying to get out of bed because it's too hot. But yeah, so I'd say I've pretty much always been a morning writer.
Okay. Do you write strictly on your computer? Do you use your writing software, or have you dabbled with writing by pen and paper or different mediums?
I always use pretty much always I'm on my computer. I think what I've found is when I'm starting to get restless, when I'm feeling like I've had enough on the computer, it really helps to take a notepad and pen to like a different place in the apartment, or even I live about 2 minutes walk from the beach, so sometimes I go to the beach. But taking a notepad and pen and kind of it kind of hits refresh somehow, like starting on a different medium, is that the right word?
I guess so.
But yeah, and I find that handwriting sometimes can make you fall back in love with what you're writing, because I do tend to get a bit sick of staring at the computer, and as you can imagine, it's a 500-page document at the end of the day, and sometimes you just need to kind of look away from the screen.
Right. Do you have any other places that you like to write outside of your home office or the beach, as you mentioned? Because that just sounds amazing to sit down on the beach and get to write. I live close to the shore. We call it the shore here in New Jersey, but Jessica lives on the other side, just south of Philadelphia. So she finds it hard, but I love going to the beach just to sit and read. Do you do the same often, or just on occasion when you feel like you've hit a roadblock?
I mean, it depends. I mean, at the moment, it's kind of too cold to just sit there and write. So not so much now. But in the summer months, it was more kind of like if I'd done the work I needed to for that day, but I was still feeling kind of inspired or like I could keep going, I would take my notepad and pen, and you can kind of trick yourself into thinking that you're not working when you are when you're sitting on the beach. So, yeah, I guess I kind of use it as like a reward, or if I'm feeling like particularly, not motivated, or like I've just had enough of something, I definitely go to try and hit refresh. But, yeah, in saying that, like I'll write a couple of pages or so. It's not like I sit there for hours on end writing at the beach. It's just kind of like a little reward, I suppose, for myself. Yeah.
It's always good to reward yourself. So can you tell me a little bit more about your online literary magazine, Writer's Edit, and how that idea came about?
Yeah, sure. So Writer's Edit started back in 2013, which feels like a really long time ago now. Oh, yeah. And the dream for it initially was always to turn it into a small press. I always loved the idea of putting books out into the world. I was always really interested in how books are actually put together. But because, that's such a massive undertaking, Writer's Edit started out as a blog for writers. We published fiction, poetry, and writing advice. And then less than a year after that, because that was kind of like my way of dipping my toes in the water and seeing if A, there was like a readership for that sort of thing, and B, if I had the commitment and dedication that you need to run something like that. And then, like less than a year later, we launched Writer's Edit Press, which went on to publish 3 creative writing anthologies called Kindling. So each year we put out a new Kindling book, and they had we were publishing the same thing, but just in print. So poetry, fiction, and writing advice, or first-hand experiences in the industry. And they did really well, and that was such a great experience for all of our authors and also our editorial team. And then 5 years on, so last year, I think it was last year, we evolved again, and so we then went from kind of publishing fiction and poetry to publishing more in-depth pieces of advice for authors and self-publishers and freelance writers. And then last year again, we expanded more and we launched an imprint for fantasy books. So Talon Press, which is the house that publishes my books. And yeah, we're just about to open up Talon Press for submissions. So yeah, it's actually really exciting. So anybody with a fantasy manuscript, hop on Writer's Edit, and we'll have a submissions page up. And yeah, that's exciting. We're hoping to expand outside of the Oromir Chronicles, which are my books, and publish some new voices, which is super cool.
Congratulations. That sounds so great.
Thank you.
How has working on Writer's Edit sort of affected your own personal writing? Because you had mentioned you did a lot of nonfiction and blogging for Writer's Edit. How did that sort of affect your fiction writing?
I think because we publish such in-depth advice. I mean, and I wasn't necessarily writing the advice, though I did do some. I was mainly editing and commissioning and things like that. And yeah, I mean, obviously, in order to publish that advice, you've got to read it. And so, I was constantly absorbing all this great information and great advice about how to write a fantasy series, how to how to publish, things like that. And so I suppose you just over the course of 5 years, I've absorbed a lot of information. And also, I think more than anything with Writer's Edit, it was being part of a really large supportive community more than anything that helped my fiction writing. Like, I constantly felt supported. I constantly had people I could turn to whether it was like, say, oh, I've got this problem, or oh, I'm feeling like crap today. Like, having a community like that who's got your back while you're taking on it's a really big thing to write and publish a book, and you feel very burnt out at times. And so Writer's Edit was fantastic in that I had just this safety net of people who were constantly lifting me up. So yeah, that's probably more how it influenced my writing and stuff, rather than what we were actually publishing and writing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. That's great. It's always good to have sort of a community around you just to support you through the tough times and celebrate with you through the good times. So that's wonderful. That's about all the questions that we have for our public interview right now. If you're a patron, stick around for more questions, bookish games, including our favorite Burn, Rewrite, and Reread, and a new game, First Page Mad Libs, with special suggestions from you, our lovely supporters. Listen as we make Helen read a heavily modified version of her first page from Heart of Mist. If you're not a patron yet, check out bookedallnight.podbean.com for more information on how you can get exclusive access to the uncut version of this interview and other episodes, find out early about exclusive giveaways, and have a chance to participate in our games for as little as $1 a month. We'd like to give another special shout out to our top tier patron, David Pogo, for their patronage to the show. Thanks so much, David Pogo. You're awesome.